Time for another edition of the Kaufman Corner podcast. With you as always, David Lesky, Soren Petro here as we talk some Royals baseball. Loud noises coming out of the WBC. That'd be your Kansas City Royals hitting the ball over the wall. Also taking walks. Bobby Witt Jr. is taking his walks. They're getting on base. We've seen Jac Caglianone homer, Maikel Garcia with a big home run yesterday for Venezuela. It's been quite a performance. Of course, Vinnie Pasquantino's 3 home run game. We'll talk about that, what it means for the Royals here moving forward. Jeff Passan said this week on my radio show, The Program, that the Royals would be a top 10 offense. How giddy should Royals fans be? We're also giving our floor ceiling comps for Carter Jensen and Jac Caglianone. When it's all said and done, what is their career going to look like? We're talking about it right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by David Lesky and Soren Petro. David Lesky is an accomplished author and the publisher of the Inside the Crown Royals baseball newsletter. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, David Lesky and Soren Petro.
All right, thank you very much, Curtis. We appreciate it. Off and running here, and David off and running of the Kansas City Royals in the World Baseball Classic. I don't think it could have gone much better for them. Vinnie Pasquantino, 3 home run game, first one of his life. Said he's never done it even in Little League. He bangs out a big day and has, even when he was struggling and not getting hits, which, by the way, I love, like he talked about, like, well, I hadn't had a hit. 3 games. I mean, how many times will he go 3 games without a hit? Even the struggles, he was working the count and doing things. Great to see him, hit the ball over the wall. Bobby Witt Jr. taking his walks, really, playing up to the leadoff spot. Maikel Garcia, we've mentioned all along that Venezuela's looked at him and said, you're batting number 2 with guys like, Jackson Churio and Ronald Acuna and, a really good lineup. And he's right there in the middle of it. It really couldn't have gone. And Jac Caglianone's hit the ball over the wall. I mean, it could not, and is taking his walks. I don't think it could have gone much better from a bat standpoint. No, I mean,
Salvador Perez has struggled, which, do we care? I don't think so. I mean, yeah, obviously there is the point that at some point he's going to age, and I'll say it again. I'm not going to predict it. I'm done.
Yeah.
But maybe it's, I don't know. I don't think so. It's a small sample too, but yeah, I mean, you look at some of the numbers. I mean, Maikel Garcia, like you said, first of all, the confidence hitting second, he's got an 1134 OPS in 5 games. Couple doubles, a home run. He's 3 for 3 in steals. He's got a walk and 3 strikeouts. No big deal there. But then, yeah, you go to Team Italy, and Vinny had another nice day yesterday after struggling. 4 hits, 3 homers, obviously. He's got 6 walks and 4 strikeouts in 25 plate appearances. That will play, as they say. I mean, that is a 24% walk rate. Yeah, 6 times 4. That's easy. Good job, David. But yeah, he's been really good. Caglianone, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. I mean, there was a stretch, and I may have missed one, but I think he was safe or got unsafely in 7 straight plate appearances at one point because he doubled in his last at bat of the first game, then was 2 for 2 with a walk and a hit by pitch, and then I think had 2 more walks or a hit and a walk or something like that. So it was 7 straight plate appearances getting on base. Witt's been phenomenal, like you said. It's all really. I mean, even Abraham Toro had a nice run for Canada. He's not really a Royal, but he's non-roster invite. He's 13-18 OPS for Canada. Like everybody who was a part of the Royals hit like crazy, except for Salvi, really.
Yeah, and what does this do? I mean, they're a team like at first it's like, okay, this is the confidence they need to go to another level. But most of these guys were on a team that were in the playoffs 2 years ago. So like how much, or is this just, maybe it's not, this isn't going to springboard them. This is the confirmation that they have arrived. Like they were knocking on the door and clearly good enough to be big leaguers and good enough to be a playoff caliber team, but this should be the moment that lets them realize that, Michael Garcia is trying to make the big leagues and now in one-off season, and trying to stay in the big leagues and then trying to prove himself to be a viable bat, right? He went into last year not, maybe ending up as a utility guy. Like, okay, you don't hit well enough.
He didn't play opening day.
Yeah, you don't hit well enough to have a spot. To now he's proven that he's an everyday third baseman and shortstop if need be. He's proven that he warrants getting paid. The contract's got to give him confidence. And now he looks around a clubhouse of his countrymen that are accomplished big leaguers, and they're like, and you bat right here in the middle of all of us. This is the affirmation that you have arrived. You are now not just a big leaguer, you're a potential star. You're on the highest level of where your country is. Vinnie Pasquantino, you can go 0 for 12, and right behind 0 for 12 is 3 home runs on one of the biggest stages in the baseball world, right? Jac Caglianone, yeah, you can struggle, but you can also hit the ball over the wall in a packed house, where the game really matters for everybody in that clubhouse. I think, and you would think Bobby would be there, but to hear Aaron Judge and Paul Skeens talk about you in glowing terms, to become the source of memes from Paul Skeens' girlfriend, I forget her name,
Yes.
NIL, queen of NIL, the gymnast.
Anyway, what's her first name? Libby.
Okay. Have her, the little thing where he's looking back at Bobby and she's mad because he's got googly eyes for Bobby. They put Bobby Witt's face in front of it. It's that thing where the guy's looking at another girl walking by and his girlfriend's all mad at him. But she put Bobby Witt Jr.'s face on the girl. So, I mean, if you're Bobby Witt Jr., like now, like you have arrived. This team, these guys have arrived. And I would think that there's almost a residual effect back to the guys in spring training that these are the guys we play with. We play with the best. We have to be at our best. There is a commitment that we have to make to being at our best because we can't let down what is clearly a championship core.
Yeah. I mean, I think about years ago before the 14 and 15 playoff runs, before the 13 season, all that. And I think about Royals who left and would sign with teams that have stars. And I my brain works weird. And I'd think about like, oh, that's interesting. They now get to go play with some legitimate big league players. They didn't get that. Like, no offense to Emil Brown, but when he's your best player, your team stinks. And guys would leave, and then they'd get to go play with actual good big league players. The Royals have those actual good big league players, and that was true. The Hosmers, Moustakas, all them during the playoff runs then too. But I mean, Bobby Witt Jr. is a superstar in baseball, not just in Kansas City, in baseball. Vinnie Pasquantino, like you said, has been he's now on the national stage. Garcia now on the national stage. Salvi always was because he's Salvi. He's got the World Series MVP. But you're right. It is. I think it has a trickle-down effect with the rest of the roster that, oh, now Isaac Collins, he played with Christian Yelich in Milwaukee, but now Isaac Collins is playing with a top 3 player in all of baseball, one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. And it is, I think there is something to it for the rest of the roster, but for the guys who were there, like you said, it is confirmation. And it's one of those things that, okay, we made the playoffs and we won a series and then we played well against the Yankees, blah, blah, blah. That's them talking. But we are now on the biggest current stage, not the biggest stage in baseball. I don't think. I think the playoffs are the biggest stage when you get there, but they are doing it on that stage now too. And so it's okay. We followed up doing it a couple of years ago with doing it now. And I think there's something to that. And it's the sort of thing of, I know doing it once means, you can do it. Doing it twice means that's what's expected. And I think that's where they've gotten to now.
Any concern? And by the way, we're recording today. If you haven't figured out from the sunlight that's coming in, I don't know which way it looks at because this thing flips the stuff around. Anyway, to my right shoulder, we had to record today because I am traveling this afternoon and will not be available. So we are recording before the U.S. is played tonight. So we're talking about everything that leads up to the U.S. playing tonight. Just want to be clear about that. But Seth Lugo getting knocked around. That is the one. He got one out against Italy, and I mean, if he's gonna get knocked out, Vinnie Pasquantino and Jac Caglianone being part of the crew to knock him out, I'll take it. But that is the one kind of rain on the parade.
It is. It's sort of like training camp when you hear, oh, Patrick Mahomes had a great day. Does that mean the corners are terrible? Right. It's that sort of thing. I think any struggle is worth paying attention to. But the thing I keep coming back to too, and I think, and I have a larger World Baseball Classic theory here. It's still spring training, right? like it's March 14th with 13 days before the season starts. I think Lugo will probably start the second or third game. So he's got 2 more weeks before he pitches a competitive regular season game. I think it's important to remember that too, that look, I mean, you look at his pitch chart from yesterday, and almost all of his fastballs ended up arm side. That's an adjustment that he can make. I think his command just wasn't there. They're still trying to figure some things out, and that kind of leads to, I think, part of the reason the World Baseball Classic has been so great and is so much fun is these guys aren't fully ready. And so you see things like Japan last night throwing the ball into center field. I'm not sure they'd do that if this game was played in July. I think that there are some mistakes that are being made because not everybody's all 100% there. I mean, yes, these are important games. They're playing that way, but they're still getting ready for the season. And so from that perspective, no, I'm not terribly concerned. But, I mean, look, he threw, 25 pitches. Fastball velocity was up, which I think is a really good thing. He only threw 5 pitches because he only had 25 pitches to throw in. He didn't get any swing and miss. He didn't get a lot of chase. The command just wasn't there, and the control just wasn't there for him. And so I think that, you monitor it, but remember that this would be his 4th spring training start, which, by the way, is also the time in spring training when guys get lit up a little bit because they've made a few starts. They've got the spring dead arm that we hear about a lot because they haven't been throwing regularly competitively for months. And then around middle of March, they have a little bit of an issue, and then they come out of it and they're fine. So we'll watch the next start, which will be for the Royals now because they're eliminated. So we'll see. I do think that it's important to remember it's still spring training.
Yeah. Are you in favor of shut down for 2 weeks at the All-Star break and play the WBC at the All-Star break? Or are you in favor of pool play happens now in spring training and then let's elongate the All-Star game for a week and let's play the last 8? Let's play a 18 tournament at the All-Star break when everybody's midseason form.
I like that idea because I think that in pool play you can lose, and it doesn't. I think that if you get to a single elimination, I don't love there being a single elimination when players aren't fully ready. I mean, when you what was the pitch count for Logan Webb the other night? It was 70, I think. If you could get 110 pitches from Logan Webb, I don't know that you would necessarily. I don't know that the Giants would love that or whatever in there. But if you could get him on a full pitch count, maybe that. I think that might be really cool for a single elimination type tournament. So yeah, I do like the idea of pool play now and that later. It would be nice if we actually knew how frequently the World Baseball Classic would be played. Because I think back, it was 2006, 2009, 2013, 2017, 2023, 2026. I know that COVID and the lockout and everything caused the big delay, but we don't know. We don't know how often it is. They need to get a cadence down. I think that's important before we decide when they play.
I kind of wondered if the 3-year thing was to get them because they want to be 26-30. Right? Do they want to be the same time as the World Cup? Do you want to have all the national pride? Because that puts you on an Olympic, a winter Olympic track. I mean, to me, I kind of thought the idea was going to be to get on the odd years because all those other things are on even years. So go ahead and own the odd years, go to a 4-year cycle and be on the odd years. So there's no Olympics and there's no World Cup ever when you're going, right? That would have been my plan, but I don't know if for some reason they're like, no, you need to ride that national momentum. Like, I do think there's something, there was a level of, wow, the USA Canada hockey was cool. And the USA hockey run, the men's and women's hockey teams were a lot of fun. And we rode that right into now Team USA plays in baseball and all these, other teams. Maybe there's some research that says that's the way to do it, but I would rather own the odd years, I think.
I think so too. And they could have, right? I mean, they could have, because it was 2023. So they could have gone every 4 years from that point. And I think they were trying to get on those odd years. I think it was 13, 17, 21, but then 21 had to get moved and they moved it to 22. Then it was the lockout. So they moved to 23 and you go, well, so just do 27. But I don't think they wanted to wait any long. I don't know. But I do like the idea of pool play now and the quarters and semis and finals at the break.
Yeah, I think that's to me, I think that's the best way to do it. We'll see what they end up doing. But I'm with you. Like, get a schedule and stop like haphazardly making these predictions. We'll take a break. When I come back and talk about Jeff Passan on my show saying that the Royals will be a top 10 offense. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Concrete season is in full swing and asphalt paving is revving up. So right now is the time to get your property on the schedule with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Whether you need new concrete work, a parking lot repaved, crack filling, seal coating, or full asphalt installation, their experienced crews handle it all right here in Kansas City. Don't wait until the rush hits. Call today for a free bid and secure your spot before the calendar fills up. Get the process started right now at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots.
Green Light Dispensary, voted Kansas City's best dispensary and your go-to for quick, convenient service. With 4 locations across the Kansas City area, we're never far away. Our drive-thru and express windows make it easy to get in, get out, and get on with your day. Our award-winning service is powered by a team of experts dedicated to making your experience seamless and enjoyable. It's no wonder we've been voted the best. Convenient locations, fast service, knowledgeable staff. That's the Green Light difference. Visit us today.
Now at Whataburger, you can get the new Big Ranch Wrap for $3, 5 premium Whata chicken bites for $4, or a bacon cheese Whataburger Jr. for $5. Add fries and a drink for a little more. Now that's a Whata deal at Whataburger. Download the app.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Jeff Passan's comments saying that the Royals would be a top 10 offense. Let's first examine. Is that you? Because I know you wrote about this in your great piece Inside the Crown. By the way, you got a code for our listeners? Are we still?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's the code again for everybody?
It's never going away for you guys, the listeners. InsideTheCrown.substack.com/Kaufman Corner.
Okay. There it is.
25% off for you.
Savings.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. On an annual subscription. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that comment. First of all, how difficult would it be for them to get to the top 10? Like, is this a bold statement? It sounds really bold, but is it as bold as we want to think? I mean, we have it in our head that offense was terrible, and you did a great job of mapping out that they really, like, yes, in the end, the numbers were not good. We mentioned they were 107 runs behind the Tigers, but a lot of that was just how dismal they were to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, they were 26th in runs scored, which the fact that they were 10th in runs scored from July 1st on, by the way, that's top 10. 10th is top 10. Tells you how bad they were. It's interesting because I think back to 2024, they were 5th in baseball in runs scored through August 29th, which was the day that Vinnie got hurt. And then from that point forward, they were awful. Then they started 2025 pretty much awful. I mean, it was, other than a 2 or 3 game, and truly it's just 2 or 3, maybe 4 games, they were pretty bad for 3 months. In the month of June, I think they scored 4 runs. Don't check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was 4 or 5 the whole month. It felt like it. But then from July 1st on, 10th in baseball. So 12 months, 8 of them, they were a top 10 offense. 4 of them, they were arguably the worst offense in baseball. And it's a little bit of a wild swing. But I don't think it's insane. But they were also 26th in runs scored. So and the whole does matter. It's not just what you did from this date to this date. But when I was listening to that, because I was driving home and I heard that, and I thought, oh, you know what, that's really nice to hear. I know Passan's a local guy, but he's also he's a national guy who happens to live locally, and I think that's an important distinction, because it, to me, says what you and I have talked about, where we look at this team, we're like, I think they're better than people are giving them credit for offensively, because they have 4 core guys. They have, and we'll talk about Jensen and Caglianone, 2 guys who could be stars. And then they've got nice complementary pieces. Collins and India feel like really nice OBP complementary pieces. And then a platoon with Isbell and Thomas, all of a sudden, Isbell's not terrible against righties. He's not, I wouldn't call him good even, but
Right.
Isbell against righties, Thomas against lefties, you go 9 deep in that lineup. Potentially. There are ifs. There are absolutely ifs there, but I don't think it's wild to say that they can be one of the 10 best offenses in baseball.
Well, and that's where I want to, that's kind of what I was getting at was, okay, like, is this even a bold statement, right? Like, because last year the Royals scored 651 runs, right? To get to top 10 last year, they would need to have gotten to 10th was the Seattle Mariners at 766. So they've got to get 115 runs. That sounds daunting. Okay. That sounds like, oh, wait a minute. You're talking about 3/4 of a run per game, basically. Okay. That is a lot. Now I know for some people will be like, well, that's just get a hit when a guy's standing on third base. I mean, they were terrible with runners in scoring position. Okay. Yes. If you got a guy on third, but big picture wise, that sounds like a lot, but there's also the regression back to the norm, right? Like, they're somewhat due for a regression back to the norm. Like, so like some of the lifting that will be done, and their run scored in 24 was 735. Right. So, you know, they were above league average in 24. And so I think there's, you know, number one, just by filling out the lineup the way they have, like Starling Marte is an option to replace either one of the left-handed hitters. You know, they have real. I believe that everybody will. Is Isaac Collins going to be a 360 on-base machine batting leadoff for his entire career? Are we looking at the dawning of Billy Butler? Not Billy Butler, the Butler for the Dodgers. That was like kind of Brett Butler, the second best leadoff hitter in baseball behind Ricky Henderson. Like, are we watching the dawning of that here? I don't know, but I am looking at a guy that I'm confident. I don't think you finished 4th. I mean, it's happened. Bob Hamlin was out of baseball not long after, you know, winning the rookie. Yeah, he won the rookie of the year. Burrow is a dismal failure. Yeah, what's that?
Over Manny Ramirez.
Yeah. You know, was out of, you know, was at least on the bench for most places not long after winning it. So, you know, you can have a big rookie year and have regression, but I feel like everybody, we're talking about big leaguers. And so the floor, which we'll get to the floor on Jac Caglianone and Carter Jensen in a little bit, but the floor is that you're still going to be a competent player, right? The floor is no longer, like, I'm hoping Jac Caglianone, this is not the case until he proves otherwise. The floor is that he has to get sent back down.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose that's the floor for Carter Jensen as well, right? Is that he has to get sent back down, and that he reaches some struggles. They find a hole in his swing and they exploit it, and he has to get sent back down. But after that, do we have anyone where, like, and I'm not even really worried about that with Carter Jensen. I have some fear on Jac Caglianone, but I'm not really worried about that with Carter Jensen. I think the pitch recognition skills are too good for him to just be a failure. And so I from that standpoint, like, that's what it was going to take. MJ Melendez, I'm not convinced is a big leaguer. He was getting tons of at-bats out in left field, right? Like, they were running guys out there consistently that have not yet to this point proven that they're big leaguers. And now not only, like, Kyle Isbell's a big leaguer, but should he be batting against lefties? You know, probably not. Right. Well, they can rectify that now. You know, injuries will play a part, and they have depth if they do have injuries. If Starling Marte has to go out there and play every day because Jac Caglianone is on the 15-day and is going to be out 21 days, Starling Marte is going to give you competent big league at bats. So the depth, and they've removed a lot of the just absolute failure aspect of what they're going to put in that lineup.
Yeah. And I'll come back to this. I've said this before. The thing that they focused on in their additions and their moves were guys who know the strike zone. and And if you know a ball from a strike, your floor raises significantly because you're able to at least get on base. Isaac Collins, yes, a lot of the numbers point to regression for him, and he hasn't had a good spring either. But he knows the strike zone. He will likely get on base. Jonathan India was pretty bad last year. He had a 323 on base, which is not good, but it's not horrendous. I mean, they had a 270 on base out of the leadoff spot in 2024. 270. It is the worst in the last at least 10 years. I can't remember how far back I went, but I remember it was at least 10 years. And Jonathan India at 323, we were like, man, this guy sucks. 323 would have, I mean, he didn't hit in the leadoff spot all year, obviously, but that's 53 points higher than they got from the leadoff spot 2 years ago. Carter Jensen, again, we'll get into his floor, but the fact that he knows the zone, that changes everything for a hitter, and it allows for the floor to be raised.
Yeah, no, I do think, when he says top 10, and how about not 10th? How about top 10 being third or fourth? What do you think the chances are that this is one of the truly elite offenses? Like, let's give ourselves, because I know everyone's like, well, if they can get to 8th or 9th or 10th, that's great, because I think they're going to pitch. But what are the chances that this is a group that is going to come together? And I think back, you got to be an old fart like me. This is probably beyond you, but I remember when the Cleveland Guardians but when they came around in the 90s, I went to college and came to Cleveland. And in 1990, we were sitting in class as freshmen, and he's like, my stance for the Indians is coming alive in 95. And he cited all these players. And people may not remember, but, they had the guys that really did the lifting were Albert Bell and Manny Ramirez and Jim Tomei. And Robbie Alomar was even on that team for a little while. Sandy Alomar was a catcher. Guys kind of came in, a couple of these guys came and went. Carlos Baerga hit at a really high level. He was like a switch hitter that had 200 hits. I think he was really the guy, the boat rose with the tide of everything around him. Kenny Lofton up at the top, setting the table. Like, they had all this young talent kind of come together, and it does feel like go back to what we were talking about with the World Baseball Classic, that maybe we're watching something similar happening with the Royals.
Yeah, I will say, if Caglianone is 85% of what he was in the minors last year, and Carter Jensen is 85% of what he was in the majors last year, it's not impossible. I don't know that I'd give it a 50% chance. I'd probably put it at 5 or 10%, maybe that is even a little bit high for me. Two or three or four. Either way, top.
Yeah, to get up there into being one of the elite offenses, where elite, you go, their offense is as good as anybody's.
Yeah, and I think it's possible.
Or say maybe the Dodgers collection of $100 million guys that are all 30.
Well, I mean, I'm looking right now. Let's see. Last year, the Yankees, run scored wise, the Yankees were tops at 849. You want to be third. The Brewers were 806. Okay, that's 155 more runs, which is one a game, basically. That's a lot. I think it's unlikely, but the fact that it's possible, and again, I said this last week, if you can't dream in spring, you're not going to ever dream. But it's unlikely, but there's a path to get there. It involves Caglianone, it involves Jensen, it involves maybe Garcia taking another step. It also involves the walls coming in 10 feet in most of the stadium too. I don't think that hurts. That yes, they might give up a few more runs. Maybe they're not what were they, 7th in ERA last year? Maybe they're 11th in ERA because of the new dimensions. But I think the offense could benefit quite a bit from that, run scored wise. Maybe more than the pitching staff is hurt. I mean, that's what Dr. Max says all the time. Like, that's what they were talking about that when the announcement was made. So yeah, I think it's possible. If you had to ask me, I'd say probably 8th, 9th, or 10th if they're going to be top 10. But really, what's the difference between 8th and 3rd? It was 791 to. Oh no, sorry, I was sorting by the wrong thing. It was 778 to 806. Well, okay, that's 28 runs. That's a run every 5 days. So I think it's possible.
Last year, the New York Yankees led baseball with 849, 825 for the Dodgers. Am I predicting that? No. But if everybody, because they're still sealing with Michael Garcia, they're still, I believe, sealing with Bobby Witt Jr. I think there might still be a little bit of sealing with Vinnie Pasquantino, right? I think he's about ready to be a finished product, right? Freddie Freeman didn't get on base at a 700 clip. It doesn't just keep going up and up and up. At some point you are what you are. And then we know that there's a world of upside with Caglianone and Carter Jensen that at least right now they carry with them the potential to be elite bats. And we think that, we just mentioned what appears to be 3 elite bats. And I think one of the keys is, as you've said many times, if you can get, look at where Salvador Perez is batting for Venezuela. Not
8 last night.
Yeah. Not 4. And if that becomes part of the bottom, is like when the pitcher's thinking like, okay, I can take a breath, and they make a mistake to Salvador Perez and he knocks it over the wall, like that's where you get to be elite. And I think 2 things, either Collins or India has to get back to being a 350 plus on base guy and handle that leadoff spot, or Bobby Witt Jr. goes to that leadoff spot, right? And we see 1-0. We see homers, doubles, he's getting on base and stealing, and we're seeing a lot of 1-0s and, return the line. And then the bottom of the lineup gets on base in front of him to give him some RBI opportunities as well. Or one of those other 2 guys grabs that leadoff spot. Or Matt Quatrero figures out he's got a righty-lefty lineup. One of them has Bobby Wood at the top. One of them has a 2. And the guys deliver on the days that they're asked to be, against whichever hand he's deems the way to go. So, I do, for the first time since probably 2017 and maybe even more like 16, feel like every spot in the lineup should be a competitive at bat for this ball club.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think it's probably 16, honestly. But yeah, I think that there's a world where they struggle again. I'm not going to pretend like that's not a possibility.
Right.
But there is also a world where the pitcher doesn't get a break. The biggest break is Isbell against a righty who was like 10% below league average. If your 9 hitter is a 90 weighted runs created plus or OPS plus or whatever in the situation he's batting in, you have a really good lineup. And there's a world that they have a really good lineup.
Yeah, for sure. All right, take another quick break here. We want to come back. We're going to talk floor and ceiling for Carter Jensen and Jac Caglianone. What can they be? What's the bottom end? What's the top end? We'll do that next after you hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is looking to grow their team. If you have heavy construction foreman experience with heavy equipment, asphalt or concrete labor, or just want to learn a new trade, contact Gann Asphalt and Concrete to join their team today. Top of the market pay, company provided insurance, and paid time off and holiday pay are just a few of the great reasons to join Gann's expanding team. Learn more about this great opportunity with Gann at GannAsphalt.com/careers. That's GannAsphalt.com/careers. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. All right, let's talk a little bit about Carter Jensen and Jac Caglianone. We're talking about the offense and where it can go, David. We thought we'd do a little floor ceiling, what we think the worst is that these guys could be, what the best is. Then we came up with some comps. You went above and beyond. You've got multiple comps. I settled on a guy that I think is going to be going to be what these players end up looking like in their careers. Let's start with Carter Jensen. He captured everyone's fancy last year, came up, immediately hit. Left-handed hitting catcher, knows the strike zone, draws walks, gets on base, but we've seen has elite power as well. Let's go bad. What's the floor for what this guy's? He's going to be at least what?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, knowing the zone makes your floor really high. And I think I looked at Mickey Tettleton as the guy, and it's not the floor is, flame out, whatever.
Yeah, that's
but
what you do. So you think that's still a possibility?
No, I mean, and that it's a possibility for anybody. So, there's random stuff can happen. But I think if you really look at a guy, he's going to get on base. He's going to hit the ball hard and far. I don't barring something crazy happening, I don't see him being a bad hitter, at least. And so, I look at like Mickey Tettleton. First of all, every kid wanted to have that crazy stance. Every kid tried it once where the bat was flat on their backside.
Right.
So that's fun. But you look at the numbers. I don't know that people realize how good Mickey Tettleton was. Like career 122 weighted runs created plus, 245 homers, 369 on base, 449 slugging percentage. I remember, and maybe I was a kid when he was playing. I remember every time he came up, the ball seemed like it was hit hard. It was never tracked. So I don't know. His average exit velocity, I think, would have been in my mind, in my kid brain, was probably top 10. He hit the ball hard. He was the concern that I would have for Jensen is defensively, which he's developing there. Tettleton was okay early in his career. He struggled late. And I can see that. But yeah, I think to me, that's kind of if he has the meh career, it's Mickey Tettleton, which is huge.
Yeah. To your point, he led the league in walks at age 31 with 122 in 1992. And that's what I mean. He came up with the A's, then went to Baltimore, had some pretty good years in Baltimore. But he was part of a Tigers team that they really, I don't think Sparky Anderson was trying to do this, but they embraced the modern game.
They did.
And hit the ball over the wall. And people don't remember old Tiger Stadium. It was like a bowling alley. I mean, it had a deep center field, but you come down the line, you could take it out. And they had like guys like Pete Incaviglia, Mickey Tettleton, like Tony Clark, 6'8" Tony Clark, now out as the MLBPA guy. But Homer, they had all these guys that would just hit the ball over the wall. I'm trying to remember, they had another guy. Oh, and I'm drawing a blank, who was like about a 197, but draw walks for a 325 on base. And then hit 28 home runs. I'm opening up like the 28 Tigers, see if I can. Oh, Travis Fryman was on that team. Cecil Fielder.
Yeah.
Cecil Fielder was on that team. Rob Deere, that's what I was trying to think of.
Rob Deere, yep.
Who was a take and rake guy. It'll give you an idea. Rob Deere, 32 home runs, 64 driven in. Right? That was Rob Deere. 247, 337, 547 on the slug. They put together this team, and Mickey Tettleton was a part of that team and was a really good player. I mean, you had elite offense and elite on base from a catcher. So you don't necessarily have to be the best catcher in the world. Mike Piazza wasn't the best catcher in the world. So, yeah. So Tettleton, and that's where you think the bottom end is?
That's where I think the middle of the bottom end is. That's kind of where I'm not going extreme. I'm doing the sit on the fence projection thing where everything regresses to the middle. But
that's what his career will look like when he's all said and done, you think?
No, that's not my top. I'm my middle of the top end.
But is this like your prediction? And then
no,
but it could be, or are you going to predict this next guy?
I think I'll predict the next guy.
Okay.
Do you want to give yours first?
Well, so yeah, I mentioned you went above and beyond. So I just have the one guy that I went with, and I went with Brian McCann. I think Brian McCann was, is probably offensively from a home run standpoint, he's the second most prolific left-handed hitting home run hitter at the catcher position behind Yogi Berra. All right. And Brian McCann, when you look at the end, 262, 337, 452. Do I think, that there are going to be days that are better than that for Carter Jensen? I do, but there were days that were better than that for Brian McCann. I mean, Brian McCann's second year, he was 333, 388, 572 for a 961. Right? I don't think people remember how good he was. He had 24 home runs, drove in 93 that second year. A couple years later, 301, 373, 523 for an 896 OPS. He had some really good years, but I think the wear and tear, if he stays behind the plate, the wear and tear is going to grind him down. Salvador Perez is the exception, not the rule. And so I toyed with the idea of going with a guy like Carlos Delgado. In fact, I toyed with Carlos Delgado for both these guys. Delgado was a bigger guy, but he started behind the plate. Jac Caglianone, he's a little bit more Jac Caglianone size-ish. But as far as just like the big swing, taking a big cut. But I thought Brian McCann, if he stays behind the dish, would be pretty good. But I also can see him hitting to a point to where when Vinnie Pasquantino becomes expensive, they trade Vinnie Pasquantino. Jac Caglianone's doing okay out there, and so he becomes a first baseman. Or we see him be a catcher and first baseman, and he starts spending more time. I don't know that you can really be a great catcher if you're spending half your time at first base. Johnny Bench played some third and first base later in his career, but to be the best catcher you're going to be, I think you need to catch. But he's already only got 1 foot in with Salvador Perez, so that's one of the reasons why, to me, it feels like we could see, we could see him drift away to another position. The fact that they're not just giving him the catcher job right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. And maybe he becomes what Salvi is now, where he's catching in first base, like you say. And then because in a couple of years, Salvi may not be there. And look, Blake Mitchell, we haven't even talked about him in a while, but the power looks like it's back based on spring training games for him. And that was a hamate injury. So the Royals are going to have to figure something out with it's a good problem to have, but it's a problem still. You got to figure it out. And that might be the path there.
Yeah. So I've got Brian McCann. I think it's pretty good again for his career. 282 home runs, drove in 1,000 for the counting category folks that are out there. Was a hell of a player. He made 3, 6, 7 All-Star games. Finished top 25 in the MVP twice. So anyone 1, 2, 3, 4 Silver Sluggers, 5 Silver Sluggers.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good career.
Yeah.
But I think Carter Jensen's numbers look like if he ends up playing left field, then he's going to be a good left fielder. If he's behind the dish, those are elite hitting numbers.
Yes, for sure.
Okay,
now,
you're upside.
My other name, it's really actually quite interesting with Brian McCann, and I'll tell you why in a second, but Jorge Posada, because everybody goes, they stay within their race, they stay within the side they hit with. I went cross race. Jorge Posada is a switch hitter. He looks nothing like Carter Jensen, but I think the career is interesting because what Posada did he walked, he didn't strike out very much, a ton. I mean, 13.1% walk rate, 20.3% strikeout rate. I think Jensen can do that. The weighted runs created plus wasn't all that dissimilar to Mickey Tettleton, actually, which I didn't mean for that to happen. But what's really interesting is if you go to Baseball Reference and you see the similar batters under Jorge Posada, number 1, Brian McCann. So I think we're in a pretty decent in agreement there. But Posada also 5 Silver Sluggers, top 3 in MVP vote once, top 6 once, arguably a Hall of Famer. Home runs were 275 for him. McCann, what was he? 282? You said, 1,018 RBIs for McCann, 1,075 I think for Jorge Posada, 1,065 for Jorge Posada. I mean, they're pretty similar players. I think we're pretty well in lockstep. You look at, real quick, like 2,000 for Jorge Posada, 417 on base, 527 slug. Overall, 374 and 474. So that's where it ended up. But like you said, I think there are going to be years better than that and years worse.
But 848 OPS for a career. I mean, Jorge Posada, the Yankees were good, and Jorge Posada was a big reason why. There was other talent on that team. And you look at his home run totals once he established himself in the big league: 17, 12, 28, 22, 20, 30, 21, 19, 23, 23, injury plague year, 22, 18, 14. I mean, totaling up to I know you'd be like, whoa, I mean, I think Carter Jensen's going to be a 30 home run hitter every year. Well, that just doesn't happen. This is what Jorge Posada had: great power. And that's what it manifests itself as a catcher. That's what it looks like. So I do want to say part of this exercise was to pump the brakes on Carter Jensen, right? Not because I don't think he's really good. It's because I think some people have gotten it in their head that he's Barry Bonds catching. And, we need to slow down on that.
Which would be great. We would not say no.
we would not say no. We would be thrilled to see such a thing occur. Yes, absolutely. I would love to see that. Let's talk a little bit about Jac Caglianone and what you've got there for. Now, I think the floor is washout. I mean, I'm with you on this one. This is hey, there's elements of big league pitching that he just can't handle. And, I think washout to he doesn't get on base. Like, who is the Ranger who's now bounced around everywhere? 180, 190 hitter, but he walks.
Oh, Joey Gallo.
Joey Gallo. Like,
Yeah.
that is down on my – but he doesn't walk like Joey Gallo, so that he will not keep getting opportunities like Joey Gallo if he doesn't hit. He's got to hit. But I do think it should be understood this could – bust is a distinct – I don't want to say distinct possibility because that makes it sound like I'm saying it's 50-50. And it's not 50-50. I think the pedigree is such that he's not going to be a bust.
It's not zero, though.
No, but you chronicled it very well in Inside the Crown and here on the podcast that his struggles were big. They were mighty. Like they need to be taken serious by him and the organization. I know they were, but fans need to know that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And he's such a tough player to comp because what's so interesting about him is he doesn't walk. Well, he hasn't walked, I should say. He might, you never know. He's looked a lot better in that regard in the WBC and in spring training before he left. But he also doesn't strike out that much. I mean, his swinging strike rate in AAA was 12.4%, which is not low, but it's not high. He had a 15.5% strikeout rate in AAA. He had 22.4% strikeout rate, which is, I believe, right around, I can't remember what league average was, but it's pretty close. And that was at the big league level. So a guy who doesn't walk a ton, doesn't strike out a ton, but has massive power, there aren't a lot of comps, which we were talking before. That's scary that there are that profile has not really existed in baseball very often.
Before we started, that's one of the things we both chatted about was that, like, as we look through this, like finding, like, we don't see the guy that looks like him. Now that can be a positive in the sense that he's unique. He's a one of a kind. And that's what makes him elite is he's got some Vlad Guerrero, like bad ball hit skills. And so he doesn't walk as much as he should because he doesn't lay off him, but he gets the bat on the ball. And so, but he does have to stay off. He's got to lay off some of the pitches, the high ones especially. You know, if he and the early returns of the WBC are that he's doing that.
Yeah, and look, he's so big and he's so long that his plate coverage is incredible, and he's so strong that he can actually drive pitches off the plate. It's what's made Salvador Perez a viable offensive option for years because he's strong enough to be able to. A lot of guys, when they make contact with pitches outside the zone, hit the ball weakly to second base, and that's that. Guys like Salvi and guys like Caglianone, theoretically, for Caglianone more than in reality, can actually do damage on pitches that most hitters can't. And so, anyway, so my middle of the low end that I went to is one who kind of is where I'm predicting, but maybe with a little more power. But Jay Bruce, which I think a lot of people. I kept looking at that and going, I don't want to say Jay Bruce. And I'm like, I can't do anything but say Jay Bruce. Like that's what it came down to. And he's a guy, 9% walk rate, 23.7% strikeout rate. I think that's not a crazy. I mean, for the time, maybe a little bit high on the strikeout rate. Not crazy though. 224 isolated slugging percentage. That's legitimate power. I mean, he hit 34 home runs. He hit 30 plus home runs. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I wouldn't be surprised if Caglianone did it 5 times. I wouldn't be surprised if he did it 10 times, honestly. But he hit 25 plus another 3 times, I think. So he's a guy. He makes a lot of sense. Big guy too, 6'3", 230. Probably.
You know what else? He was the 12th overall. Sorry to interrupt you. I talked right over the air. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
He was the 12th overall pick in the draft too. I mean, he's got the pedigree similar to Caglianone of being a high draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. I could see it. I don't, and I also think that if that's what Jac Caglianone becomes, no, he's not a star. But there were years, and by the way, too, you look at some of Bruce's minor league seasons. I mean, he 567 slug in AAA 1 year, 630 another year. I mean, these are Caglianone minor league numbers too. So it's not. I could see it, and he was a passable at times, actually a decent defender, but passable defender mostly. I think that if that's what Caglianone becomes, no, he's not the guy you anchor in the 4 spot for the next 10 years. But if he's hitting 4th, you're not suffering terribly. You know, he's not the superstar that you think you drafted at number 6, but it's playable. And I think that, and again, I looked at that as kind of like, if you look at a bunch of outcomes for the bottom end, this is the middle of it. The bottom of it is never seeing a big league pitch after 2027. But the middle of it, I think, is Jay Bruce. Maybe toward the top of the bottom end, actually. But even so, I like it.
I'm going to tell you that I think Jay Bruce is the best comp out there. I think you did the best job. You get an A+ on this assignment because and I don't know why I didn't settle on Jay Bruce. I saw his name. I remember him up in fantasy leagues. You know, it's so much of what you remember are the, you know, grinding through the numbers, getting ready for that.
Right.
Jay Bruce is absolutely perfect. I mean, the on base, like
All right, we'll see you next week, everybody.
Yeah, it really is. Like, there's no point in me even talking about it. But 244, 314, 467, that's what it feels like. And if he's a little bit more than that, great. If he's a lot more than that, spectacular. But you know, the on-base percentages are more like what you kind of feel like. He had a 353 and a 341 early in his career, but there's some 329, 281, 294, 309. That kind of feels like what Caglianone's going to be, right? Unless he suddenly does an about face here with some hitting changes. I'll give you mine. Nothing to do with the wheels. Okay, I'm going to give a guy that was considered one of the best players in baseball, and I do think that there may very well be a year where Jac Caglianone hits 39 home runs, bats 269 with a 366 on base and a 545 slug. This guy led the league in home runs with 39, in slugging at 545, OPS at 911. So we're going back to 1988, right? Is the year that I'm focusing in on. This guy won a Rookie of the Year. Jac Caglianone's not going to do that. And he was tall and long. He was long and lean. He was 6'6", 190, and he could steal a base. In fact, he stole 221 bases in his career, including a 30-30 season in 1987, where he had 39 home runs and 36 stolen bases. I'm talking about the straw that stirred the drink, Darryl Strawberry, in the sense that, you know, and his swing was easier than Caglianone, so it's not as good a comp as Jay Bruce's. His on-base percentage was better. Although I do think, you know, he had a 389, a 398, even late in his career when he was, you know, more of a pinch hitter, 364, 363, a career 357 on base and a 259 batting average. I don't think there's going to be that kind of separation. I think there'll be a couple of years like that. Caglianone's obviously not going to steal bases like Darryl Strawberry did, but they're both 6'6", you know, Caglianone's 6'5". That kind of lift on the swing once he gets in the rhythm of it, I just think that presence at the plate, all that, the vibe, the feel is more what I was going for. You nailed it with the numbers, but Strawberry was like, all right, stop. We got to watch Strawberry's up. Let's take a second here. We're gonna stop here in the airport and watch Darryl Strawberry's at bat. You know, that's what he was, and I think Jac Caglianone's going to be that kind of guy. Now you've got a guy that you like on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going top end, and this is if his career, if he figures it out, and there's actually an interesting parallel here too. But look at Justin Morneau, mostly with the Twins. But I mean, first of all, he started off his career 226, 287, 377. It was 40 games, it was 115 plate appearances, not 200, whatever it was for Cags. But he struggled in his first taste of the big leagues. And then he came back the next year, 271, 340, 536 in 312 plate appearances. So double that. You're looking at, he had 19 homers, double it to 38, 58 RBIs, double it to 120. Yeah, I don't know that I'm looking at those numbers this year, but that was his age 23 season. And he sort of figured out. Then he fell back a little bit. And then he eventually kind of figured out plate discipline a little bit more, which I think is interesting because I think Caglianone is down that road right now. But in the end, 281, 348, 481. Some of it was Colorado based. He had a couple years in Colorado that were pretty solid on the counting stats. But yeah, I think if you want to talk about, and maybe even a little more power than this, but if you want to talk about what Caglianone could be, Morneau is a good comp, and he was actually the number 2 comp in the Zips projections for Caglianone. And all the projections love Jac Caglianone because the minor league numbers were so amazing, good that it's just hard to ignore him. But Morneau is to me an interesting one. I also thought about Pete Alonso, which it seemed a little lazy because it's just two Florida guys.
Okay.
But also, you know, he has the kind of power that Pete Alonso has, and Morneau never had that power. I mean, Pete Alonso, 53, then 16, but that was 2020, short season. Full seasons, 53, 37, 40, 46, 34, 38. Those are his home run totals. I could see it.
I got no problem with that. And the on base is not, he is more of a free swinger than like a Jim Thome. Like I looked through Jim Thome, Carlos Delgado, and I like, that's where I wanted to go. And I'm like, those guys just, they handle the strike zone better.
And Kyle Schwarber was another guy I looked at.
I looked at Schwarber as well. Love Kyle Schwarber. And I think there is some, Kyle Schwarber in him. I mean, Kyle Schwarber's career on base is 346, but I still think he's had a 366 and 365 and 374. I think that seems a little lofty for Caglianone. And especially when it's, but I think Kyle Schwarber has sold out. His batting average has also the last few years been 218, 197, 248, 240. And we'll see. I think if Caglianone sells out to that and becomes just a pure take and rake, which is what Kyle Schwarber is, then maybe Schwarber's a good comp. But
could be. Yeah.
It all comes down to him swinging at the good pitches.
It does. And I'm looking at the Alonso numbers now, and I'm like, maybe he was better than Morneau. Actually, it just felt lazy because the Florida guy, and maybe where did he go in the draft? He was a second round pick, so not exactly the same there. But look at, the walk rates for Alonso: 10.4, 10, 9.4, 9.8, 9.9, 10. They're not elite, and I think you start hitting for home runs, you eventually walk. Yeah. And so, maybe Alonso is a pretty good comp there. 253, 341, 516, 264 homers, and what is it, 6-7 big league seasons, but one of them was 2020, which is, a short season. Obviously, he only had 239 plate appearances. So Alonso's not a bad one either if you're looking at top end.
And you consider that he came out and hit 53 home runs his first year, but he was 24 his first year. So Caglianone has gotten there quicker. So, the ramp up is going to happen at the big league level for Caglianone, where it seemed like he was a finished product for Pete Alonso. No, it was fun.
What did he do in the minors? His last season in the minors was 2018. Yeah, he had Caglianone numbers: 285, 395, 579 in the minors in 2018. So I mean, I could see that one too. Yeah, as a top end.
I like it. It was a fun exercise to kind of dig through and see what there. And it, like we said, it kind of stopped you in your tracks. Like, but there's no one kind of quite like Caglianone. I found a lot more guys that I'm like, this is Carter Jensen. This could be Carter Jensen than I did Caglianone. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he does this year, because we'll have a much better feel for what he's going to be after this year. So hopefully it's a monster year.
Probably after April, honestly, because I really do believe, I think it's, if he's taking pitches, if he is handling the zone well, he'll be fine, and we'll know that pretty quickly, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Listen, you can support the Kaufman Corner podcast by supporting our great sponsors. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They're hiring, looking for experienced asphalt and concrete paving foremen, operators, and laborers. If you're looking for a company that offers top-of-the-market pay, company-provided insurance, paid time off, and many more benefits, go to GannAsphalt.com/careers. Our friends at Greenlight, 15 locations in Missouri. More on the way. Greenlight, your go-to for all your cannabis needs. Tell them you heard about it right here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. Our friends at Whataburger right now, the new Big Ranch Wrap is just $3. Get 5 premium Whata chicken bites for $4, or a bacon cheese Whataburger Junior for $5. Remember, Whataburger's open 24 hours a day, serving breakfast 11 p to 11A. Get it right now if you've got the munchies going on. And, of course, our friends at Northland Injury Law. For 40 years, they've been voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers. If you've been hurt in an accident, whether it's at work or on the roads, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. For David Lesky, I'm Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining.